long before any European laid eyes on the approaching riders. The earth trembled. It was a precursor to a storm that would soon engulf the continent. A strange, unsettling dust, carried on winds from the east, heralded their arrival, whispering tales of an unstoppable force. In April of 1241, that storm finally materialized. The Mongols had arrived in Europe, bringing with them a terror previously unknown. Legnica, a city in what is now Poland, was about to experience fear on a scale it had never imagined. 4 weeks before the invaders were even seen, villages were ablaze. Scouts spoke in hushed, terrified tones of lightning-fast horsemen, arrows that could pierce even the strongest armor, and a war drum that resonated like thunder echoing across the vast plains. Duke Henry II of Silesia initially dismissed these reports. He refused to believe the Mongols could have come so far west. Europe, he thought, was protected by its dense forests and imposing castles, but the reports kept flooding in, each more alarming than the last. The Mongols were crossing rivers. They were laying waste to Krakow. They were riding relentlessly westward, driven by urgency. Duke Henry rallied knights from Poland, Bohemia, and the Teutonic Order. He amassed maybe 8,000 men, possibly even fewer. It was a hastily assembled army of peasants, crossbowmen, and armored knights, the best he could muster on such short notice. They prayed for strength, meticulously polished their steel armor, and braced themselves for the inevitable clash. The Mongol forces, commanded by Baidar and Kaidan, operated with a clear objective. They had no desire to conquer Poland. Their mission was to divert European attention, while the main Mongol army decimated Hungary. Legnica was simply the bait, and Duke Henry was about to take it. As dawn broke, painting the sky a pale silver, the European knights formed their battle lines. Their banners snapped in the wind, trumpets blared, and their chainmail clattered. Surveying his troops, Henry's confidence grew. They appeared to outnumber the enemy. In the distance, the Mongols emerged as dark specks, gradually transforming into identifiable riders. They wore no heavy armor and carried no fluttering banners. Their approach was characterized by an unnerving silence, moving like shadows across the landscape. Suddenly, the sky erupted with arrows. The initial volley decimated the crossbowmen, their ranks collapsing under the onslaught. Horses screamed in agony and terror. Driven by a desperate courage, the knights lowered their lances and charged headlong into the Mongol lines. This was precisely the trap the Mongols had laid. They initiated their signature maneuver, the feigned retreat. It was one of their most devastating tactics. Seeing the Mongols turn and ride away, the knights believed they were rooting. They shouted triumphantly, "They're running. We have them." The European cavalry thundered forward, abandoning their infantry support in their eagerness to pursue the fleeing enemy. The Mongols skillfully lured them further and further into the open plain. Then, with the suddenness of smoke reversing in the wind, they wheeled around to face their pursuers. From the flanks, additional riders emerged fresh and rested, having been concealed behind the hills. A relentless barrage of arrows rained down from every direction. The trap had sprung. Knights fell, entangled in their heavy armor and the bodies of their slain horses. Arrows found their marks in the narrow eye slits of helmets and the vulnerable gaps beneath their arms. The ground became a muddy mire, saturated with blood and the weight of the fallen. Duke Henry attempted to rally his disintegrating forces, but chaos and confusion spread faster than courage. The Mongols moved with terrifying efficiency, like a single, coordinated organism, unleashing volleys of arrows and withdrawing with practiced ease. They were never still, never predictable. By midday, the Polish army was utterly broken. Duke Henry himself was surrounded, his banner lost in a swirling storm of dust and death. Legends say he fought valiantly to the very end. His severed head was later displayed on a spear before the city walls of Legnica, a grim warning of Mongol power. But the Mongols did not linger. Their goal was not conquest, but devastation. They burned, looted, and gathered intelligence before turning south to rejoin the main invasion force. Europe was gripped by fear. The Pope called for mass prayers, and rumors spread that God's punishment had arrived from the east. Then, as abruptly as they had appeared, the Mongols vanished. Their great Khan had died back in Mongolia, and the generals were recalled to elect a successor. Historians agree that had the Khan lived just a few months longer, Europe might have fallen. So what made the Mongols such a terrifying force? The answer lies in several key factors. First, speed. Their horses could cover incredible distances in a single day. Second, discipline. Every soldier knew and instantly obeyed the signals of a horn or a flag. Third, deception. They used fake camps, feigned retreats, and even set fires to exaggerate their numbers. And finally, intelligence. Their scouts mapped rivers, fords, and fortresses long before any attack. They knew their enemy intimately, before their enemy even knew their name. At Legnica, Europe encountered a new kind of warfare, one it simply didn't understand. It was mobile, psychological, and ruthlessly coordinated. The knights fought bravely, but they were essentially playing chess against an opponent who had already planned several moves ahead. The Battle of Legnica left an indelible scar on Europe, a mark deeper than mere defeat. It taught a crucial lesson, that no wall, no armor, and no faith alone could stop an enemy that adapted and learned faster than it fought. From this brutal lesson, Europe began to adapt, studying Mongol tactics, rethinking its defenses, and forging alliances that would ultimately define the balance of power in the decades to come. On a map, Legnica appears as a small, insignificant in southwestern Poland. But in 1241, it was the point where two vastly different worlds collided. The heavily armored knights of Europe and the precision-driven steppe warriors of Mongolia. It was the moment when the West first gazed into the eyes of an empire that had conquered half the known world, and barely even paused. The Mongols disappeared as quickly as they had arrived, but the memory of their terror lingered. Villagers continued to tell stories of the sound of hooves in the night, the acrid smell of smoke, and the endless rain of arrows from the sky. And somewhere in the dust of that forgotten field, the course of history subtly, brutally, and irrevocably changed. If you're interested in seeing how those tactics evolved, Europe eventually learned to fight back, stay tuned to this channel. The next episode will explore what happened when the Mongol storm encountered a wall it simply couldn't break. Thanks for watching.